Good evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in All Departments. As you probably noticed, on Thursday we did postpone cherry picking. Of course, with the breaking news, we felt that it was only right to postpone all of our shows up until this point. Of course, the news on Thursday was one of great sadness when we found out that Queen Elizabeth II, Her Royal Majesty, passed away at, and it was announced about 6:30 in the evening. Our condolences to from everybody here at Up the Cherries in all departments go to the whole of the royal family, and we do need to remember the fantastic work that she did for this country. So we do thank her, and we wish King Charles III the very, very best in his new role. So, of course, guys, it was only right that we postponed cherry picking on Thursday as the news filtered through. Um, and do tell us a little bit about your memories of the Queen and the fantastic work she did.
Um, yeah, I mean, she's been a part of. Well, she's been around obviously the whole of our lifetime. I know some people are royalists and some people aren't, but I mean, you can't um, mistaken the devotion to the country that she's devoted virtually her whole life to. Um, and yeah, it's very strange to think that you won't see her opening a hospital or visiting or going around the country anymore, and it is going to be very strange. I mean, we always knew this time would come, but I think because she's been such a strong figurehead, it's still very, very surprising. Even though, over the last year and with the Jubilee, she wasn't well enough to attend all the events, but still quite a great shock. But yeah, I mean, in terms of memories, I mean, she's just been there for the whole of our lives. She has been the Queen. I mean, for the whole of my father's life. I mean, he's coming up to 70 now, and he's never known another monarch, and
Mm.
nor was my mother, and things like that. So when you look at it from that perspective, um, it's a massive, massive, massive loss to not only the country but the Commonwealth, but also really for the entire world, for the impression she left on many, many countries across the world.
Yeah, most definitely. And there was one article actually that I saw just shortly after, and I believe this was on Friday, where Steve Fletcher did mention the time when he met the Queen. It was back in 2004, and met her on Quick Kings Park, and it was quite a funny story actually, because and it's a sort of, she always had quite a nice sense of humour about her, didn't she? As did Prince Philip as well. But with Fletcher, where he joined, he was in the queue to meet Prince Philip, and then he sneaked into the back of the queue to meet the Queen as well. So it's an absolutely lovely, lovely story that Fletcher's shared there. Um, and that was back from 2004. But the incredible work she did, for this country and across the whole of the Commonwealth as well. You know, the royal family is such an asset to this nation, and what they actually provide, and the support they've given to everybody, in difficult times, but also in great times as well, like the 2012 Olympics. Who can forget the James Bond moment? And of course, there was Paddington Bear for the Jubilee as well. So, um, like we say, we knew that this time was always going to come, but it's a surreal feeling because none of us, let's be honest, and um, actually remember a time before the Queen. And actually, our guard made a point that he couldn't think of anybody on his Twitter who had known anything outside of the Queen. Um, so it does go to show how long she reigned, and we'll never see somebody else like that, will we?
Definitely not.
No, no, not at all. I don't think there'd be another monarch like her, unfortunately. For the amount of service she's devoted to the country, there won't be anybody else like her. No one.
Okay.
Of course, there was the games that were postponed on Saturday, and I got to be honest, I was right behind their postponing. It always is going to be a bit disappointing when a game is postponed, but in this circumstance, there's always going to be another game. There's always going to be that next time, whereas you're not going to have somebody like the Queen again, and that is why I thought it was the right decision. There was a lot of people that thought it was the wrong decision, and people should be able to pay their respects at the football. But we can do that next week, or whenever the next game is. Should the Newcastle game be postponed, that's absolutely fair enough, because that game would just be moved, just like the Brighton game will be, and just to an alternative date. And we'll still play the 38 games, but like I say, I think it was the right decision in the end. And, a respect to a remarkable lady. Of course, what we are here to talk about as well today is our most memorable games. And I think, this is quite a good subject to cover off. And cover off our memories, like, of course, memories of the Queen. So I think that ties in quite nicely. Um, so what we'll do is we'll go around the room and we'll pick a memorable game each, and then we'll carry on going round until we've covered everything off. But do you want to start, Matt, or do you want to start, Sam?
Matt can go first then.
There you go.
Yeah. Memorable games. Well, it's a difficult one, isn't it, to pick? Like just a memorable game because there's been so many. I mean, one of my first memorable games was back 95. Bournemouth playing Shrewsbury. Midweek game, Great Escape season.
Yeah.
Now that's memorable. I can't really remember much of the game. I remember Scott Mean scoring a goal. But that was my first memorable game because it was the first time I got to run on the pitch.
Yeah.
When you're like 10 years old, that was quite exciting at the time. But yeah, it's hard when you go back through the years to like pinpoint just one game because there's been so many. But one that I would probably start with would be the 2003 playoff final at the Millennium Stadium. Went down the year before into Division 3. And really, I think if I remember right, I think we had quite a few injuries that season. I think Fletcher was out for a lot of it, I think, and there was other injuries amongst the squad. And I still to this day don't really know how that squad went down. I mean, I remember, I don't know whether you all remember much of it, Sam, but when we travelled up to Wrexham, didn't we, last game of the season?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember us travelling up there. I mean, me, Chris was there as well. And our dads and that, we travelled up there. And I remember while we were driving up, thinking, we'll get a result today. I think Wrexham weren't doing too bad in the league. I don't know where they were. I don't think they were promotion. I think they were quite tidy in the mid-table, I think, not going up, not going down. And we going up there feeling quite positive that we'd get something on the day. Obviously, we didn't, went down. managed to keep the squad together for the following season. Because there was always rumours of players like James Hayter going, and decent players like that. And we had a good season. Obviously secured the playoff place, which obviously playoffs is never, as we know from recent times, playoffs ain't. Playoffs are great if you win them like this one, but like the last playoff, we were with, against Brentford in the Championship was disheartening. But if you win them, they come off. They're fantastic ways to get promoted. We had a great day out at Millennium Stadium, as it was known then. I think we were the first team to score 5 goals at the Millennium Stadium. I might be wrong. You might have to check that fact out, but I'm pretty certain we were the first team to score 5.
We'll claim it anyway, shall we?
But yeah, we'll have it.
Yeah, we'll have it.
Delayed, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was an absolutely fantastic day. We all went up on a coach, and it was a good build up, similar to kind of similar to when we went up to Wembley about 5 years previous. It was a good build up. But thinking of that game, I was worrying, thinking, oh God, we lost the last major final, but final we were in, and so. But the game itself, I mean, at the time they had a player called Ben Fletcher. He was he was a Peter Crouch sized centre back who at the time I think might have been their leading goal scorer that season, because he was absolutely dangerous from set pieces. And I think if I remember rightly, the late Keith Alexander was Lincoln's manager at the time, and they had a very, very good season with him and with Fletcher. Obviously, we know how the game opened up, obviously with a superb finish by the big man. Which was nice about that goal. It was nice to see someone else flick a ball onto Fletch, because Marcus Browning put a flick onto Fletch, and Fletch finished with a fantastic volley for a change. So it was nice to see someone set him up that way rather than seeing Fletch doing all the hard work. So, great goal to open up with. I mean, I always find that difficult to separate, that goal and the Grimsby goal that he scored, which one was the better finish. But I think I always go with the Grimsby one because of the importance of the game. But absolutely fantastic finish that day. Unfortunately, he was on the wrong foot against Ben Fletcher from a set piece for Lincoln's equaliser. Fletcher out-jumped Fletch, but Fletcher could out-jump anybody on that pitch and managed to squeeze an equaliser in. But, I mean, after that, we just played absolutely fantastic that day. I don't know what memory Sam's got of it, but... you had Carl Fletcher completely leading from the front. That season, he moved back into a centre-back role, and he was playing. I mean, this is how many injuries we had that season, because, I mean, we had Carl Fletcher playing at the back, and we had a lone player coming from Middlesbrough called Philip Gulliver. At the time, Middlesbrough were Premier League, and he was brought in. So, yeah, there's a lot of injuries, because... Feeney, I think Warren Feeney was injured. Jason Tyndall was injured. There was a lot of names on the injury list. But yeah, Carl Fletcher led from the line. Scored 2 headers that day. It was just an all-round fantastic performance. Perchie, I remember Perchie scoring. I think he run pretty much the length of the field to finish that one. So yeah, it was a really, really good day. And it was nice to see Bournemouth lift a trophy, and you have all the rocking all over the world by Status Quo beaming out of the speakers, and all the flags, the red and black flags going. It was a fantastic atmosphere, and a great performance by the team on that day. Really, really was. So that's a real memorable game for me.
And in fact, that was a game that Steve Fletcher, in the interview I did with him back in November last year, actually referred back to in quite some detail of course, he'd had disappointments in the past, so he really did grab that one by the scruff of the neck and took it to Lincoln. So yeah, one of the great games, and I'm sure you'll be seeing quite a lot of footage as well of that, and for years to come. It's even on. The whole match is actually on the AFC Bournemouth YouTube channel as well, that was released during the COVID period as well. So if you want to watch the whole match, go and watch it there.
Funny you should mention Fletch, because there was a story. I don't know if you know the story about his shirt.
Go on.
There was, I think it wasn't. We didn't have anything like embroidered on the shirts that day. So there was no. I think all the players were still wearing their shirts from the current season, but I think that if any of their shirts were damaged or anything, they got issued a new one for that fine.
Yeah.
Fletcher had such a run in his shirt that his shirt was all ripped down here,
Yeah.
Collar and all that, and the neck. Someone had pulled his shirt, I believe, obviously during one of the games, and ripped it, and he refused a new shirt because, as far as he was concerned, he had such a good run in that shirt. He wanted to wear that on the final day, and obviously it paid off.
Well, there we go. And
There is a
I'm
picture
sure
somewhere of him showing the rip in the shirt.
Well, I'm sure the big man will put you right if it wasn't,
Yeah,
but I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. You know your stuff, Matt, don't you?
well, what's this, mastermind?
Well, you could say that, but of course. Shall I go next, Sam?
I don't mind. I can if you want. Or
Yeah, go for it, mate. Go for it.
yeah. So one of my first memorable matches, even though we didn't win, was the one at Wembley against Grimsby. Obviously, on the day, it was a good day travelling up, going through the underground to get to Wembley. And yeah, obviously we started well. John Bailey scored. Grimsby then equalised, and then we went into extra time and unfortunately lost it. But overall, that was the biggest memorable game I have of my earlier years. Before, obviously, then, as Matt said, the playoff when we won against Lincoln.
That was another game as well that Fletch did mention during that interview, and it was a game Fletch did play in that game as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was partnering Mark Steen at the time. Mark Steen was on loan from Chelsea. Didn't really have a good goal scoring run while he was on loan. For us, I think I don't know how many appearances he made, but I think he might have only scored the one goal at the time. But yeah, he was partnering Steeno up front for that one.
Yeah. I think I think really that loss, and we've heard it before as well, haven't we, with Vince Bartram, where he said that he lost out against Man City with Gillingham and then bounced back the following season. So I think it does really give the very best players and the most the players where it means so much to them, it gives them that impetus to go back there and put things right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously Fletcher had the opportunity 5 years later. But during those earlier rounds of that tournament, I mean, I know Sam will probably remember, but that we had a French defender from Leicester. Do you want to go, Sam, or do you want me to?
No, you carry on. Yeah.
Frank Rowling. He's I mean, for some fans, he's a bit of a cult hero. I would say he was probably one of my cult heroes if I had to name one. But that season, just every game in that tournament, he seemed to have played. He scored, and we won. And I remember, I don't know if it was as we were on our way up to Wembley or if it was the day before or what. But I remember hearing, we heard the news that he had a slight back twinge or back injury, so he'd only make the bench. I'm still adamant to this day, if that guy had played, we'd have won that final. He would have scored. It was destined that he would have scored. He scored in pretty much every other round. Obviously, you got a young Eddie Howe that deputised for him in on that day, who'd been playing most of the season alongside Ian Cox anyway, but or a lot of the season. But he come in and had a good game. But I'm still adamant that if he had played, Frank Rowland had played, probably would have won that day. But that's just football, isn't it? And that's all in the past now.
Indeed.
Well, the game I'm going to pick, and to be honest, there's an obvious one. There is an obvious one that we're going to probably save towards the end. It's already been mentioned already by Matt, but it was a goal which Fletch scored, and one of the most memorable. But I'm going to go for something a bit different, and of course that Bolton game, where we won 3-0 at home. It wasn't mathematically certain after that game, but it was pretty much, wasn't it? It would have had to take about a 19-goal swing or something.
Yeah, I was going to say,
like that, wasn't it?
It was a 19-goal swing, wasn't it? So, I mean, even though it wasn't mathematically there, it was probably about 99.9% there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because there was, I could never see, I can't remember which team it was that had to score 19 now.
I'm trying to think now. There would have had to be a swing, so it was.
So I think by then it was pretty much certain us and Watford, wasn't it?
Sheffield Wednesday? Am I right in thinking that? Was it Sheffield Wednesday?
No, wasn't that Sheffield? Wasn't it Watford that played Sheffield Wednesday and they messed it up?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was. Yeah. You know what?
There was a 19-goal swing for whoever it was.
Yes, yeah. To be honest, it doesn't matter now because, of course, we did the business on the final day of the season. I will find out who it was. Was it Norwich?
Yes, because they went up via the playoffs, didn't they?
Yes. Yes,
so it
they
might
did.
have been Norwich. Yeah, you're right. I'll go your friends.
Yeah, there we go. That's Wikipedia for you. But of course, that Bolton game was. I think there was a good feeling before it, wasn't there? Really,
Yeah.
we was going into that game and we thought we can do this now. There was always that doubt throughout that season of, we're little Bournemouth. Can't imagine us in the Premier League. We had to pinch ourselves throughout that season to actually believe what we were doing. But it got closer and closer and closer. And then it comes to that Bolton game, and there was just that over sense of, this is going to happen. And let's be fair, it didn't really take that long. It was the first half. It was Mark Pugh. One of his dazzling little runs as per normal, that got into the position, and he just slotted it. Was it Jaskalainen, wasn't it, in goal for Bolton, who had been there for years? Am I right in thinking that?
No, I think didn't they have a Liverpool loanee at the time? What's his name? But begins with a B.
Bogdan, yes. Bogdan, yeah.
You know me with these names, I can never remember the names. Yeah, I do remember. I think Jaskalainen was at West Ham then, wasn't he? Or somewhere?
It probably was actually.
But it was him in goal that day.
But a fantastic strike by Mark Pugh, and that set the impetus for the second half, of course. Which then, of course, no, it was Matt Ritchie went before the first second half, wasn't it? 44 minutes. Am I right?
Yeah,
just beforehand.
Just on the break.
Yeah, and then of course Callum finished it on that 78th minute. But it was just a remarkable match. It was the point where you knew what was coming. Everybody was on the pitch. Of course, Jeff had that hat on there as well. We were there. Though mathematically it was 99.9% sure at that point, wasn't it? But I think that's probably one of the most memorable games for me, because even though you could say, take it back to last season, playing Nottingham Forest, And even though that was a tougher game, that was the first time, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Getting into the Premier League. So
Yeah, to compare the two, there was obviously a different feeling between the Forest and the Bolton game. So obviously, the first time you achieve it, obviously it's always a magical feeling. Even though Kiefer scoring that goal, the whole place just erupted, and obviously we were all on the pitch again. And
yeah,
I mean, it's one of them. This time, for me, it felt like it was either now or never again.
Yeah.
It was either, that's the kind of feeling I had. So that's why the Forest game was magical. But the first time you always achieve it, it's always also. I mean, I can just remember the final whistle going, straight onto the pitch and celebrating with all the other fans and obviously then we had the changing room moment with Jeff on Sky Sports, didn't we?
Yeah.
With his little naughty word he had, but it was it was a real fantastic evening, magical. Probably, yeah. Again, this is what I mean. It's so hard to go over the years and pick, memorable games because every if you compare the the playoff final that I've just spoken about to the Bolton game, it's completely different feeling. I mean, even though it's a promotion, it's still, when you get to the Premier League for the first time and, everybody sort of, writes you off to a certain degree and just, say Bournemouth are in the Championship to make the numbers up by then. Whereas the first season we were in the Championship, I think we were one of the favourites to go straight back down. The second season we were kind of there to make the numbers up. So it was great to prove, the pundits and the sports writers all wrong. But yeah, I mean, I remember that first half just being a fantastic game of football. I mean, I remember. I mean, they had Liam Feeney playing for Bolton, and I kind of remember before the game thinking, it'd be just our luck that we go and bloody lose this 1-0 and Feeney's the scorer, But another good player. From years gone by, Liam Feeney. He wasn't at the club for majorly long, but
wasn't Heskey in their team as well?
Heskey was up front that night.
Yeah,
Wasn't he? Heskey was up front that night. But he was really in the twilight days, wasn't he? By then,
yeah.
I think he went back to Bolton for a bit of a swan song, didn't he? Because that's where he started. But yeah, no, I mean. Yeah, I can't remember where Bolton were. Were Bolton relegated that year?
I'm trying to think now. That's a very, very good
They
point.
kind of were on a downward spiral around that time, weren't they?
Yeah, they didn't go down that year, I don't think. But they went down the following year, didn't they? I'm sure. Let me... Power of Wikipedia, here we go. No, they didn't go down that season that we went up. But yes, they went rock bottom the following season in 24th spot. So, yeah, that's something my mind does serve me correctly on. But yeah, I think for the occasion, it was it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The side just performed so well that night. It put us on the map. People did knock us as soon as we got to the Premier League. The only thing I would have loved to have seen was Jan and also Brett Pittman get a little bit more time in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean Jan, another cult hero of mine, really.
Yeah.
Thought the guy was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, obviously at the time, when we let Jan go, I thought, maybe we could have done with him in certain types of games, but obviously didn't matter because we stayed up and built on from there. For Brett,
it would have just been nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, his goal scoring record speaks for itself. I don't think he would have got a lot of game time, definite, but it would have just been nice to see Brett make an appearance in the Premier League, just to say he'd played in every professional division for Bournemouth. Because obviously he's played in League Two, he's played in League One, Championship. You know, for him to play a couple of games in the Premier League, you know, he could have had that on his CV that he played in every division for Bournemouth. But no, I mean, Brett was a fantastic finisher. I mean, I remember seeing him when he was in the youth team, and the kid, he was just scoring goals for fun. When he used to play down Chapel Gate. But yeah, good career in the game. You know, Brett, good football league player, good finisher.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of the fans thought, you know, used to think he was a little bit, say, lazy at times. You know, like tracking back and hoping to try and win the ball, and you know, defense starts from attack and all that. But for me, that never ever bothered me, because you know he knew where the net was. I mean, you want to talk about another memorable game, was the game against Wickham in the -17 season, when he scored an absolute screamer of a free kick. Must have been at least 30-yard out.
He used to really score some, you know, brilliant goals at every level, really. At every level. You know, it would have been lovely to have seen him make his debut in the Premier League for the club he'd played for at every level. I'd love to have seen him score one in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think, you know, put him in a situation, you know, where he's got a one-on-one or an opportunity, he probably would have.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, what was your views on that, Sam?
Brett Pittman, yeah, exactly that. It would have been great to see him play in the top league after his stats says it all for each league he's come through. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. But I would have definitely loved it for him to have a go and be given an opportunity, because exactly like Craig said, if he got put through one-on-one, he's going to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, this is the. I mean, also, I mean, if you know, if he was told that he wouldn't be playing regular, you know, and for someone like Brett, I think, you know, playing and scoring goals is the most important thing to probably what division he was in. Even though, you know, you would love to have had a crack at the Premier League, any player would, but you know, I think the most important thing for Brett would have been playing and scoring goals, which he went on to do at Ipswich, didn't he? And then Pompey, and you know, and eventually was at Bristol Rovers, wasn't he? And now AFC Portchester, which I'm sure he's doing a very, very good job there. But yeah, just a great finisher. You know, knew where the goal was. You know, good striker. You know, very, very different. Obviously, in a very different mould to, say, Callum Wilson. Very different mould to a Fletcher. You know, he had his own playing style, and you know, just a fantastic football league player.
Yep, completely agree. Completely agree. And, you know, again, of course, he was off the bench in that Bolton game as well. So I think, you know, that has to be one of those most standout moments for me. Who wants to go next?
Sam, do you want to go?
Yeah, so another memorable game for me was obviously the game in the Premier League when we played Liverpool at home. I believe we were 2-0 down, got a goal back, and then Emre Can curled one in to make it 3-1, and then we thought, oh, it's not going to happen. And then obviously Fraser come off the bench, we pulled it back to 3-0, and then Ake got that last-minute goal. That was one of the biggest and the greatest games for me personally, watching at the in the Premier League so far. Yeah.
That Ake goal was brilliant as well. You know, it was pin perfect. And, you know, he did that so many times as well for us. And that's why he does stand as a legend. That Liverpool side, you know, although, you could say that a couple of years later, they really grew as a club. Of course, won the Premier League. It might not have been as strong, but still there was a lot of attacking intent up front, and our defence really had to, do a really good job on them. From memory, what do you remember of that game, Matt?
Well, from that one,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the third goal going in. I'm thinking, wow, that could be the end of that. But obviously the fight back was good, very good.
Yep.
Bringing on Fraser, that was the one of the first times that Fraser started to really make an impact from that point.
Yeah.
And went on to build onto it the following season and the season after that. So, because obviously he'd spent the previous year out on loan at Ipswich. So, he came on and made a real difference during that game. But I think everyone will remember that little pokey in from Ake. Not forgetting Cookie scored one as well that day, didn't he?
He did, yeah. His was to make it 3-3, wasn't it?
I believe so. His was the equaliser, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a very, very memorable game. We've had some good ones. Again, if you look at the Premier League era, beating Chelsea,
Yeah.
United, we've done that twice at Dean Court and we've beaten United. So
Spurs,
yeah, do you know what I mean? We have done it, and there's no reason why we can't do it again this year. Because the last two games there's been a lot of positives to take from them, and it's a bit of a difficult one that we've had to have a break in between that, because obviously next week we know where we're going if the game goes ahead, which is going to be a very difficult place to go, long old trip as well, but yeah, let's just hope Gary O'Neill can take something from previous games that we've played over the years as well, and knows that we can beat these big teams. I mean, beating Chelsea away as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Twice. So I mean, it's not just a case of playing them in our own backyard. We can beat them in their backyard as well. So yeah, let's hope we have a few more of those type of games this season where we can celebrate beating the big boys.
There's no reason why not. Of course, there was, even in the COVID year, we beat Chelsea.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Beat Chelsea. Dan Gosling's goal. So, of course, it was a VAR decision. I know we moan about VAR on this channel, but I remember it was a VAR decision.
I think everybody moans about VAR, don't they? I don't think it's just us that moans about it.
I shan't mention the fucking Burnley game, but at least it went for us in that occasion. But here's a question: do you remember who scored Liverpool's first goal in that game at 4-3?
Oh, that's a question. Oh, what question? Well, you've been on Wikipedia again.
I know.
Was this Wikipedia telling you that?
No, I know. It's up there. He's not there anymore.
No. I'm gonna go with what's his name? No, he scored the third goal, didn't he? Go on then.
Sturridge.
No. Sadio Mane.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. He always liked to score against Bournemouth. He likes to score against anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but am I right in thinking that was one of his first goals for the club? I'm trying to think.
Did he sign for him in the January?
I think he did.
Because why have I got a feeling this was a cold January Sunday in my head?
It was.
Right?
No, it was
It was
December.
Sunday.
It was December, so he
Oh.
didn't sign in
Oh,
January. But
I
no,
doubt
I think I must be.
I doubt it was one of his first goals then, but it was definitely one of his
Yeah,
early goals, wasn't it?
yeah. I
Um,
think I might be making that bit up then. So yeah,
I
sorry.
remember it being a cold Sunday.
Yes,
Remember it being a cold Sunday. Because was it on Super Sunday?
it was. Yes.
Yeah, it was.
What
Yeah.
a game for a neutral.
Yeah. Yeah, but remarkable turnaround, and we've done that a couple of times. Everton's another one that we've done it to when we
Yeah.
pulled them back to 3-3, and from 3-0 down.
Remember rightly,
Yes,
Stanislas?
yeah, Stanislas, 98th minute.
Yeah, it
If I'm
was.
right thinking.
Yeah.
It
Is
was
that
98.
isn't that a game when Smithy put one into the top corner?
I think you might be right.
He scored a fantastic goal against Everton. I'm pretty certain it was that game, wasn't it?
Mhm,
Yeah. I mean, look, so many memories, isn't there? I mean, and other people have different memories to others, and think,
mhm.
more games are more important or more memorable than games that we might think. But I mean, it's just going through all the years is, I mean, like I say, I remember, first time I ran on a pitch, first pitch invasion, and and right up until the Nottingham Forest game. It's a lot of memories over the years.
Do you want to do the honours for the special one?
Who, me?
Yep.
So obviously we'll be talking about the Great Escape 2,
Yes.
the legendary game against Grimsby.
I did have that right up there on my list, but I thought we'll save it for the end because that game was remarkable. To be honest, it's fair to say the game up at Chester was equally as important, wasn't it? The 2-0
Yes,
win.
yeah,
So I think personally that was equally as important, but it was getting across that line against Grimsby.
yeah.
And go on, you what do you remember from start to
Well,
finish? To be honest.
I mean, I thought, do you want me to start, Sam? Would you want to go?
You go, mate.
From remembering going to the game that day, just the Wembley final stuck in my head.
Mm,
Thinking, we've had a big game against Grimsby before, but this is bigger than that game. And I was just praying that, we would get through it. I think at the time, Grimsby had a bit of a struggle that season, I think.
yeah, they
I
did.
don't think they were safe when we beat them, because I think there's on the DVD. I mean, I've got all the DVDs here from pretty much all the important games and the DVDs that have been produced over the years. And when you watch the Great Escape DVD, which I did a little while ago, the Great Escape 2, at the end of the game, you see Big Fletch in the tunnel with Mike Newell. And the first thing he said to Mike Newell was, "Are you guys safe?" And to which he replied, we don't know yet." So it was a big game for Grimsby as well.
Mm,
But that day, I remember that day, North Stand that day, at the back of the North Stand, and it was rocking. It was rocking, but yeah, for me, people say, if we'd have lost that game, the club probably would have died. I think others have said, there would have been the chance that the club would have carried on.
mhm.
I mean, it was just the capping of a fine fairy tale, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Eddie, unfortunately retires. Fantastic player. Becomes a coach under Bondi. Bondi loses his job that season. So he starts that season as a first team coach. Then ends up with the School of Excellence,
Yep.
and ends up back in the dugout, and not only that, brings back a club icon, and it's the club icon that scores the goal. It's just you could write it. It is just an absolute fairy tale. I mean, I know Bournemouth going to the Premier League's a fairy tale. The first time we got there, but I mean, this was a real fairy tale.
He was an unknown manager at that time, Eddie Howe. It was a club legend. We knew who he was, but to a lot of people outside of Bournemouth, they've probably gone Eddie Howe. And what he inherited, because I remember, of course, Jimmy Quinn and his dog were in charge just before Eddie took over. And wasn't it in December, that Blythe Spartans game?
It couldn't get any lower, could it?
No.
And I got a funny feeling, wasn't the replay on national TV?
Yeah.
I mean, humiliating. I mean, no disrespect to Blythe Spartans, absolutely fair play. That's what the FA Cup's all about, giant killing and things like that. And that's what the FA Cup should be about. So absolutely fair play to them, not knocking them. But yeah, not, especially for, someone that's been brought in to save the club from relegation. It's not a result you want, is it?
No.
That day was just. I mean, I remember. I think Danny Hollands might have had a little confrontation with the fans that day. Might have been that game. I know he did it one game where the fans were getting on the players' backs quite a bit. It's one of those, isn't it? We've said this before. Quinn's football wasn't great.
Atrocious.
I mean, I remember watching one of the first games. He took charge of. Was it Macclesfield or some against Macclesfield at home, or just an absolute dire? I mean, it's painful talking about it. I mean, just an absolute dire 0-0. And you think, is this an improvement on what Bondi was doing? I think Bondi was a little bit harshly treated that year because, I mean, if you just rewind a few months, we were very, very unlucky not to stay up. And if we didn't have the point deductions, with the run we had from the position we were in, we'd have been pushing for the playoffs. So, I mean, I think Bondi was a little bit unfairly treated. And I remember the Aldershot game away, going up to that, and they brought a striker in on loan from somewhere. I can't remember where it was from. I think his name was Ricky Stapleton.
Yeah.
And that game, I think he scored in that game. And we ended up drawing it 1-1. I can't remember how many games Bondi had. Did he have 3 or 4? He didn't have many, did he? Before we got the chop.
I think we should have stuck by Kevin Bond, but then again, had we not had Jimmy Quinn, would we have had Eddie Howe? There's always these questions, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always that. I mean, obviously, I'm just, thinking, back at the time.
Yeah, he was harshly treated.
Bondi. I mean, the new ownership was in there when they Sport 6, and they didn't have a clue what they were doing by the end of it, by the sounds of things. But because they weren't involved in the club very long, were they? Before the likes of Eddie Mitchell and Adam Murray, those guys come in. It was actually Adam Murray that gave Eddie the job, wasn't it? And put a lot of confidence in him, and that's probably one of the best decisions anyone's ever made for the football club to put this challenge to this young coach, untried manager, and pulls off an absolute fairy tale. But I mean, the actual game itself, if I remember rightly, we went 1-0 down.
Yeah.
And you could feel around the whole ground, people getting nervous. But I remember Liam Feeney, we mentioned earlier, scoring the equaliser. It's kind of settled the nerves a bit, but it was waiting for that second goal, wasn't it?
Yeah. And of course, the second goal did come. And, of course, I spoke to the big man about himself about it and what went through his head at that point in time. Trying to think back to that interview and that game. Wasn't it Mark Mosley that passed it through to? No, am I right? Mark Mosley had the shot, didn't he? Come back and then Fletch hit it.
Yeah, I think they have a bit of banter about that, didn't they? Them
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
I think it's a case of
Without watching it,
I mean, the amount of times I've seen the goal, you never focus on what Mark Mosley was doing. It's always just Fletcher's volley and that ball, just seeing the speed the ball goes into that onion bag. It's just, it's, which, yeah, I mean, even now you see that goal and you just think of, how important to our journey from that goal to now, how important that has been, and it will be forever in Bournemouth's history. That Fletcher's, just Fletcher's contribution for the whole of his time here is been phenomenal. And obviously he got the first recipient of the Sir Tom Finney Award, wasn't he, from the EFL? So I mean, that was more than thoroughly deserved. So I mean, his services to the club hasn't gone unrecognised, obviously, but I mean, he will always be remembered, I think, for that goal. Not a bad finish either, was it?
no.
Let's be honest. I mean, it's not like being remembered for a tap in, is he? He's it was great volley.
It was a phenomenal goal for that moment as well, and of course the celebrations, him running over to the crowd, ripping his shirt off. Yeah, it was just a relief, wasn't it? Let's be fair, around the ground that day. And then of course the following season, Eddie pulled off was it a miracle that we went up the following season? I think Eddie did a fantastic job in the transfer market as well, didn't he? With what he had available.
I think there was still a transfer embargo at the time as well.
Yeah,
I remember rightly.
Who did we bring in? We brought in some, didn't we? But we didn't bring in many. But I seem to remember, what he worked with and what he did. Was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the squad was the same faces. I think if you compare the two squads, by the time he brought in Liam Feeney and Anton Robinson and brought Fletch back, I think there was a couple of few loanies in there as well, but for the following season, if I remember rightly. I don't think there was too much difference between the two full squads. But obviously the momentum from that last period of the season before they built on.
Yeah.
And, I think that's where really the together anything is possible kind of was born and developed throughout the years because, he took that squad up. Again, another memorable game is that away game at Burton.
Yeah.
It's another one you can chuck in there. See, I mean, you could go on all night with memorable games because one game will always lead to another, or another scenario would lead to another game, or whatever. But just so many games out there.
And of course, the following season, Eddie bought in a certain Pew, didn't he? When we got into League One.
Yeah. What a player. I mean, people criticise Pewey a little bit, thinking, he was a bit of a one-trick pony, but I never ever saw that.
No.
Okay, he wasn't, Cruyff turning every single person he was up against, but he beat his man. He would create things. Loved a goal as well. Again, I mean, if you talk about, great servants to the club, he's definitely one of them. And you can name loads of great servants to the football club. When he actually left, I thought a lot of that season that he actually left, he could have been in and around the squad.
Yeah.
For me, I think there was a couple of one player that springs to my mind, who I probably wouldn't have had on the bench most of that season. I probably would rather have had Pewey on there. To be fair, but all players' times at clubs come to an end eventually, and unfortunately, it was the end for him on that season. But yeah, just a great servant. Fantastic to see a player like him. Daniels, Francis, Arta. Players that have all come from League One. And there's probably a couple more I haven't mentioned there. All coming from League One up to the Premier. All been on that journey. And I remember at the time, I think he played against us the season before for Hereford and scored against us.
Yeah.
And I think he was making a few ripples through the League Two at the time. And I think it was just after then that we started to become linked with him. But yeah, come in and, fantastic player.
Yeah. And what a servant he was to this football club, and, an outstanding footballer. And, he's a good chef as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Looks very, very nice. So if he ever wants to come dine with me, here we are. Here's 3 willing participants. But I tell you what,
if you like things done in a microwave.
Yeah, but we get to try Mark Hughes, or what I'll do is I'll just pay him a little bit, and can say, Mark, can you just cook for me?
Yeah.
That's bribery, but it might work on Channel 4.
Matt can't cook, so he won't be cooking anything.
No, I can't cook. Well, spaghetti bolognese, I think, is the limit. But yeah, I think Mark would expect a little bit more than that. Mark, if you are watching, do tell us, what you would make of spaghetti bolognese and microwavable meals. We'd be quite interested. What would you make, Sam?
I like fajitas, enchiladas.
See, there's a professional. Mark's probably looking forward to your night, but might be thinking, oh bloody hell, got Rustler burger and bloody dolmio and some bloody pasta in a bowl.
With Matt, you'll get a pizza cooked on cardboard, in the oven.
I did do that once. That is actually true. The cardboard, I put it in to the oven, and I think was it me missus, Sam? I think
she found out after. Yeah,
she opened it up while I was cooking, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "That's why I don't cook."
Yeah.
I'll do the washing. You do the cooking. That's the deal we got in this house.
Do you know what? I once did it, and the kids were like, "Oh, your pizzas are so good. Really, really nice pizzas." I'd gone down to bloody Domino's and bought them beforehand. And just there you go.
One way down.
Yeah, exactly. I have to tell them that improvisation. But but yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight to have you two back on the show, and did miss you both on Thursday, but of course, it was only right that we postponed cherry picking, and again we reiterate, that Elizabeth II is a massive loss for this country. And, we thank everybody for their understanding, including the Brighton fan that was going to do the opposition preview show. It was scheduled for 6:00. I did push it back to 7 just to see what happened. And of course, we heard the very unfortunate news at 6:30. So we do appreciate his understanding as well. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you back on. And cherry picking should be this Thursday as well. So do keep checking the channel. We should hopefully have some interviews as well. We will have our opposition preview show if the Newcastle game isn't postponed. If it is postponed, we'll do that at a later point anyway, guys. But in the interim, please do check out our interviews. Do check out that interview with Fletch, because it is really, really good. Do check out the interview with Eddie Mitchell. He goes on about appointing Eddie Howe as well and talks about that in some detail. And there's lots more. Steve Cook as well. So that was a really enjoyable interview to do. And of course, we've had more recent ones as well, haven't we? You did an interview with Mark Crosley recently, Matt, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a good interview. Had some good stories about Cloughie. Obviously, when we did the Forest opposition preview, it was nice to have him on. And we've had others, haven't we? Like Paul Mitchell, Sean Till.
Yep.
Amongst others. So there's some worthwhile ones to check out.
Yep, most definitely. Well, until the next show, guys, up the cherries in all departments, and we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.